Thank you very much for tuning in today. We have an award-winning author, the author of Hands of Gold, and it capitalizes on our guest today, her 36 years as a published writer. Currently a freelance health reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and Medscape WebMD. She was an editor-writer for Medscape and previously associate editor of the Atlanta Jewish Times with a seasoned history as a staff reporter for daily and weekly newspapers, and as a freelancer for national, regional, and online publications. Her book, it's like a love letter. It's like a love story. It's talks about genealogy, and we'll get a little bit more into that. But this book, Hands of Gold, I hope that it will touch each and every one of us as we talk a little bit more about it. So pay attention, hold on to your horses. We'll be right back right after our intro.
Let's talk about love and marriage, the way that God intended. Life experience, here we share it. The No Fruit Podcast. Tune in from any platform. No Fruit Podcast. Will help your spirit transform.
We thank you very much for listening today, and we have none other than Roni Robbins. Thank you, Roni, for coming on to the show.
Thank you for having me here.
Sure,
So
no
glad
problem.
to have you.
So you have this book, Hands of Gold, which was taken from cassette tapes. Stories from your genealogy, your family, right? I don't want to tell too much of it because I would like for you to explain it a little bit.
Sure.
So please, first of all, what was it like taking a story from cassette tapes? Because you don't hear about people talking about cassette tapes anymore right now. So what was that like?
Well, back then, when I started on this in 2000, they would have been more common.
Right.
Maybe I don't know when when things progressed from there, but it was still we still had a cassette tape player, so somewhere. So it was interesting to listen to it was my grandfather who left cassette tapes of his life story and his journey from Czechoslovakia to America,
Okay.
and his adventures along the way, and his near-death experiences, his battles with tuberculosis, which is still the largest infectious disease killer in the world, and he survived that. So losing his family in the Holocaust. There was a lot to unpack when listening to these cassette tapes. I must have had a cassette tape player in my car, which just seems like ancient history, but because I would ride around and listen to my grandfather's voice. And I wrote a column about that, and I thought, they're going to think you're crazy. You hear your grandparents' voice, in your head, but I was listening to the cassette tapes. So there, it was love. It was, my grandparents were married for 65 years and they died on the date of each other a year apart.
Wow.
So that felt very romantic
Yeah.
in a depressing sort of way. But when we talk about romance, that was like the literal spark that I said, I wonder how many people had that kind of relationship that would be that strong that when your loved one dies on the year anniversary, you just couldn't take it anymore and went with them. So that seemed to be a bond, that it happened to be the same exact day. Coincidence, maybe, but irony makes good drama.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So there was that. And so I weave that all together as a journalist. I'm a writer. Obviously, I'm a storyteller in some sense, but on smaller scale. So I took small stories and made them into a bigger book.
Right.
So that's pretty much it. So it was sad sometimes, and it was funny sometimes. There was humor in it, the way that they spoke at the time, or the way my grandfather was speaking on the cassette tapes, basically to his grandchildren, which would be me, among them.
Right.
And so he was funny. He was, there was sadness. He talked about loss. but he was also had a lot of positive energy.
Mm.
So my question, what was the time span of him doing these recordings? Was it like, I'm sure it wasn't actual time, but later on in his life, he kind of just looked back at things and said, I want you guys to understand my life story and what all I had gone through?
So my aunt gave him cassette tapes and the player, the Panasonic
Mm-hmm.
player with instructions how to use it. He might have already known how to use it, but she gave him that and said the children want to hear your story. I mean, that got to be depressing for him, but it also filled his time and made him feel worthwhile. This was at the end of his life. He didn't know it was the end of his life, but his wife was in the hospital so for some surgery, and I think they were in a nursing home at the time, so he probably had a good inkling that this might be the end, so it took his mind off of sadness for her.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how has it been the importance of understanding what his journey through life was like, and how has that encouraged you to go to the next level and maybe even look at life and say, hey, you know what, I can do that. If he could get through that, I could get through, taking out the trash or, washing a dog or something like that. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So looking at that and hearing his story, how has that motivate you to do anything that you've accomplished?
So they did go through a lot. So when we think we have it tough, we have to keep it in perspective. We had COVID, they had TB. We have some wars, and we have people being discriminated against, and there's anti-Semitism, there's hatred, there's barbaric treatment of other people, there's genocide. We think it's gone away, and that was just then, but it hasn't. There's wars raging elsewhere, sometimes here, sometimes 9/11, and so we've experienced hardships too. I don't think on the scale that they did. They had Great Depression. Okay, we have recession. Our prices have gone up a little bit, but we can manage that. It seems much better. So whatever we go through, whatever they had was worse, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So if they could do it, we certainly shouldn't whine about all the things that we have to go through. We do, and it's only getting worse. I think our generation, my generation, let's speak for myself here. My generation was the tough it up, get over it. No mental issues, because you weren't allowed to have them. They didn't exist. They weren't recognized. There were things that were just ignored. Maybe even safety was ignored. We weren't even strapped in
The
a
cars,
car seat.
I know.
So there were different values and things that were important. I don't know. They weren't worried about things that we're worried about today. But I think we complain a lot about what we have to go through. And I think the next generation complains even more. Now,
yeah.
I'm not saying mental illness, whatever, it's there. But, for most everything, certainly my generation, get over it. Is that a Cher? Was that from Cher? I don't know what her line was. But
yeah.
Get over it, or snap out of it. Actually, I think it was snap out of it. So, that was my generation, and I think I still sort of do that. And I might have gotten it from the previous generation, because when I ask my mom and she tells me all the things that is going on, she just giggles and, what are you going to do?
Right.
Just get through this until the next, and try to think of all the positive things that are coming after you conquer whatever it is that you're trying to conquer.
Right.
Whether it's health or other challenges.
So you spoke a lot about a lot of the struggles that your grandparents had gone through. And again, our audience, some people, yes, we're struggling and we have a lot going on, especially now. But how did your grandparents still, you said they were married 65 years. So how were there any stories about love and how love kept them through all of those trials and ups and downs.
Absolutely. And love does take you through, I think, having a significant other. So you all told me you've been married 25 years. I've been married 30. They were married 65. So you think that you've gone through a lot together
Mhm.
to this point and now double that.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So, when my grandfather came to this country and had tuberculosis, he had just met my grandmother and she was there by his side. I guess she was all, maybe they didn't care about the fact that it was super contagious back then,
Mm.
but she must have been suited up or something because she was in the room with him
Mhm.
at various points. And so
Wow.
when he came to from a coma, he
Wow.
he was told that she was there the whole time.
Right.
So she was with him by his side literally during that, and they had just met each other
Mm-hmm.
um recently, and she was there throughout the whole years in and out of rehabilitation for him, and she was the breadwinner at a time when women were not breadwinners, they were homemakers.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So she had to tough it up, get out there, provide for her family. She had no choice.
Mhm. Mhm.
So and then when the tables turned later on in life, when she was the one who had struggles, he was there for her. The
Mm-hmm.
Right.
most of the time when I was growing up, I remember her being the one that had trouble walking
Mhm.
and swollen legs, I remember. And he seemed like the one that was so healthy, but I had been told that it was different back when, that
Yeah.
he went through a lot of health challenges, but I didn't know that.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
did learn a lot through the tapes that they didn't really go into details about.
That's great. That's
So,
great.
but they went through life together.
Mm-hmm.
They started out with romance, dare I say, sex at one point. They did have 5 children, so they enjoyed that.
Yes.
They enjoyed having a family, raising a family.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they didn't enjoy, struggling,
Of course.
but they changed homes together. They went through it literally hand in hand,
Mm-hmm.
to play off of the title of the book. They were there for sickness and health. They were there in good times and bad times.
Mhm.
So you say those words, but what do they really mean?
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
really go through that together? And I think we do. I think we do.
Yeah.
I don't know that we went through it before COVID, but if you've got health challenges and you've got a mate to
Mm-hmm.
to to be there with you, I think it means so much.
It
The
Mm-hmm.
does.
children aren't very supportive all the time. I have 2 children. They're young adults. They're trying to make their own way in
Mhm.
the world.
Mm-hmm.
They hardly ever ask, "How are you guys doing?" And so they're into their own lives.
Yeah.
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 We're just there to support them and take care of them.
Right.
I don't know when that changes, and then you start, caring
Right.
about them as
Mhm.
people and not just caretakers.
Yeah.
But I think we can go through a lot together, and I certainly value my husband's support. And
Mm-hmm.
we just celebrated 30.
Nice.
So we really do balance each other out.
Yeah.
And when I'm stressed, he's calm, and when he's stressed, I'm calm.
I can
Yeah.
So
attest to
I don't know
that.
how
Yeah.
that happens, but
It just
it
somehow
just
does.
does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost like you said with your grandparents, one was sick and the other one was well, and then
Vice
times
versa.
changed around, and then the other one was sick and the other one was well. So it's just always seems to happen that way because that happens with Maurice and myself. It's like we're never stressed at the same time. We're never sick at the same time. Like it doesn't happen that way. And I guess God just makes it happen so that somebody's always well enough to still manage and maintain and take care of the household and make sure the kids still get out or whatever it might be. So it's just amazing how that happens when you have a partnership and a relationship like that. Yeah, it's awesome.
Definitely.
So
Yeah, we both had COVID at the same time, but
Mhm.
he had the cough and I had, loss of taste and,
Mm.
lost weight and just some other issues, but we had different versions of it. So he didn't think it was as bad as
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
probably did. But it's also very much attitude about things.
Correct.
And see, I think one of the things that we're talking about as we're talking about marriage and raising kids and all those type of things, there's something that we don't speak about too often right now, which is just love as a whole. How love perseveres, how it's patient, how it's kind, how it's generous, how it understands, and all, when we think about love right now, like we don't hear that. We only hear about the physical side, but we don't hear about all the other attributes and characteristics and all these other traits that we need to have in that space. And I appreciate you talking about this, because I think your grandparents' story exhibits all of those things in order for them to make 65. First of all, they had to eat healthy. Make 65 years.
I don't think they ate healthy, just so that you know. That I know. They did not eat healthy, so I hate to tell you that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, did they fight? I don't know how much they fought.
Mhm.
It depends how badly you fight, I guess. Somebody's got to back down. I think that's part of it. I think people give up easily on many different things. I mean, it took me 20 years from start to finish to get this book published professionally. Most people are not going to have that kind of endurance.
Yeah.
They're going to give up. Not that I didn't give up,
But you went back
my
to it.
grandfather didn't give up trying to go to America when it didn't work out. The first time he doubled back, rethought it, and then went out again.
Yeah.
I just find that people don't really try as hard as they can. Now, it's not easy to be married.
Oh, no.
So
Say that again.
We've had our moments. Yeah, no, it's not. But, I guess you may, work it out somehow, or realize that you're fighting over dumb things.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, we had a drag out fight about one of us leaving the air conditioning on. I mean, really? So, I mean, it may be important to one person. I'm not saying anything about that, but, accidents happen, and but minor things. We almost didn't make it. We had cold feet I had cold feet at the beginning. It's probably my fault most of the time. But, and that's okay to, admit that. But, I had cold feet right at the beginning. I wasn't sure. You never know when you take this step. But for them and for us, I don't think there is a way out. There was not my husband says, and it's not nice. He goes, murder, yes, but divorce, no. I don't think that's a nice thing to say, but
till death do us part.
Yeah, I mean,
he's taking it another way.
He says, if I'm packing my bags, he's packing his bags. These are nice things to say. Actually, killing, he can walk away. I think his best way to deal with stuff is walk away. It makes me so angry, but he does walk away. So I guess you learn what works, and realize that some of the issues are pretty minor.
Yeah. Especially when you look at your grandparents and all that they had gone through externally, you know what I mean? And I think sometimes those external things make you pull together even more as a couple, you know what I mean? So those fights about, rationing bread, and, I can imagine with 5 kids during the Depression, what it could have been like, especially if she's out winning, and working, and then things change around health-wise. Like it can truly be so much for that family. So could there have been lots of fights? But it's just like, what are we fighting over? We don't have much. So to begin with. So you have to kind of lean towards one another and find the good in it all. I always like saying I like to find the silver lining behind things, because there's always...
That's the tagline in my subhead.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about the book.
So, like I said, romance, tuberculosis. He was involved in a workplace shooting spree. It was actually in the New York Daily News, which, would you believe, I ended up freelancing for them years later as a correspondent. So irony, unbelievable. So my husband's name is Ian and my name is Roni. Put them together, you got irony. So it's just part of our lives,
Oh,
or
wonderful.
mine. I'm the dramatic one. So he was involved in a workplace shooting spree. In the story, in the newspaper article, as a newspaper reporter, of course, I found a newspaper article I could use. And he talked to the gunman. So in my novel, he talks to the gunman and saves people. So I played with it a little bit. There were 200 people in that rehabilitation center trying to earn a living, a little bit at a time. He was a supervisor. They were, it was a tailor shop, a clothing.
Mhm.
They were manufacturing clothing. So he had what they call, what is in Yiddish, chutzpah. He had, this word.
Yes.
So maybe it's in the American, it's pop culture, like
Oh.
schlepp and a bunch of other ones. Yiddish is dispersed throughout the
Yes.
book for authenticity. So he had chutzpah, he had bravery, courage.
Mhm.
He almost died from tuberculosis. What else are you going to throw at him? He almost, he might have died in the Holocaust had he stayed in Europe. So what else what else you got,
Yeah.
So he talked to the gunman. And in my story, he wrestled him to the ground and subdued him and talked him down. So, that's all building on what was already in the news. And in that I've labeled this fiction, I've changed all the names. And I changed these are some examples of other items that I changed that were based on facts. He accidentally killed somebody. They lost a grown son to leukemia. And, that's, rough on a family.
Yes.
to bury your son before you are, it's not supposed to be that way. So they went through a lot together. And, so it starts out and ends out in the nursing home. And you would say, oh, that's so sad. Well, yes, but they were in their 80s. And they were there till the end together, not too long. My grandfather was not by himself that long. He was there for a year by himself, after she had passed. That's got to be hard. She told him, and it's in the tapes and in the book, tie up loose ends and meet me in heaven. She knew what was going on.
Yeah.
They were talking. She understood what was happening. So they that's all wrapped up in this book. It's the life of a person. What can you do with your life? Might I say your hands, because you're holding hands through life. You're working with your hands. What is the silver lining of misfortune? The silver lining of misfortune for them were the simple blessings of a family and being able to practice their religion in America in without persecution.
Yeah.
So that's the story. That's
Nice.
pretty much the hands of gold.
I'm gonna tell you, I want to change the name of the character. I want to call him Clark Kent or something, because he has these Superman,
Superpowers, yeah.
Because some of the things that you say, and we understand from a reality perspective, it can happen, but some things just sound like it's just so far fetched, because it's just like, hey, sometimes you don't believe that people keep encountering these situations one after another. It just seems so unreal, but it's real life. These things happen, and it's just called life, but we don't understand. Sometimes we don't understand that we're here to touch other people. It's not always just us, and our stories can change the world, basically, because it could touch not just us and our families. And it's great that you did your genealogy, and hopefully it has helped out, those other individuals say, hey, I could be married for 65 years, even maybe just, can I make it 62 minutes, let alone 65 years? But, but I think those type of things shows us that through it all, we can continue to touch everyone and anyone and anybody in any situation, no matter race, creed, color, any, ethnic group, whatever it is. So I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing it with us today.
Of course. I also want to add one little thing, and that is he was a clinical trial patient for streptomycin, which is still used to treat tuberculosis today. And if I didn't mention that already,
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
he made a mark. He made a difference. To streptomycin is still used today, and it paved the way for further treatments for tuberculosis. And like I said, tuberculosis, if I didn't say it, tuberculosis is the largest infectious disease killer in the world.
Yeah.
So he actually was part of history, not just these other things. He was in the newspaper for saving people, or at least talking to the gunman. He was written up in the newspaper, and he was part of this research that is still that the world benefits from
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
So this he's just my grandfather, yes,
Yes.
but he had this whole history, and I
Right.
think it does show that many of us have more to us
Yeah.
than meets the eye.
Mhm.
We might just be a mother or father, but we have so much more to share
Yeah.
with our family if we leave it behind in some way. If it's talked about, if others learn from it, like you said.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I appreciate you coming on. Please
Thank you.
share where people can find your book, your website, and even maybe talk to you, bring you out, and encourage a small group or something.
Correct. That's great. Thank you. Absolutely. I am available all online, and I'm www.ronirobbins.com. You have to spell my name right, RoniRobbins.com. You can learn more than you ever wanted to know about me, my background, my journalism, my writing, not just about the Hands of Gold, where I'm going to be speaking next, book talk questions you can use in your groups. I would love to be able to speak to groups. I'm on Facebook. I think I have 4 Facebook accounts, couple connected with the book, one my maiden name, which is Kayne, so Roni Kane Robbins, because people knew me before I was a Robbins. I've got 2 Twitters. Most of those are still mine, just Roni Robbins. Maybe Roni Robbins 1, I don't know. And I've got a TikTok, but who knows if we're using TikTok.
I know,
my
right?
son is created help. He's an actor in LA,
Okay.
and he created a TikTok for me a while back. So we got some Hands of Gold in video by a professional actor. Instagram, Roni Robbins. There's a Hands of Gold one, but I think it was hacked. So Twitter, no, I said that. X, LinkedIn, same. You just Google me, and I should pop up as the author or the writer or the however, one of those. Mostly people know me as either author, writer, journalist. So
Okay.
Easily found.
Cool.
Wonderful.
I appreciate that. And keep in mind, Ronnie, we're going to have all that, not all of it, but we have most of that in the description
Show
anyway.
notes, yeah.
So those of you who are in motion, you're walking, you're talking, you're in the market, things like that. When you sit down, these links will be in the description. So I hopefully you hear it, but you'll be able to read it as well. But Ronnie, I thank you for coming on the show. But I have to ask you one more question before you go. One last question. It's a burning question, right?
Uh-oh.
So Ronnie,
yes,
if you really could, sing a duet with anyone in the world, dead or alive.
Oh boy.
Who would it be?
Oh man, you're gonna ask me music questions. I will tell you this. Ed Sheeran and I shared something in common. He wrote a song for Game of Thrones called Hands of Gold.
Yes.
And so it's more of that time period or that genre of Game of Thrones. Very popular show.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and It's called Hands of Gold. So are you familiar with the song?
I am. I can't sing it, but yeah.
Okay. All right. And some knights and I'm not sure because I looked into it and they had this relationship. He had a relationship. He is talking about a woman.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that was infidelity. I
Right.
don't know what that was
Yeah.
exactly. So I didn't watch the show, so you might know. But I think it would be cool to. You're assuming that I have a decent voice, which I think I've lost my voice. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in a younger version of Roni, who wanted to be a musician but realized she just likes writing lyrics, I think Ed Sheeran would be a good person.
Great.
Nice.
He doesn't know about me, and I had that name before him, Hands of Gold. I
Yes.
just want you to know. Probably copyrighted. So don't you think I should get some
Maybe.
benefit
Exactly.
from being connected with him
Yeah,
and
sure.
Game of Thrones?
Sure, why not?
No, that would be nice.
Yeah.
It would be great. Shout out to Ed Sheeran. Love his music.
Nice.
I think he should sing with me, or somebody, about Hands of Gold, my book, instead
Right.
of his version
Yes.
of it. Since
Yes.
I think mine is probably a better love story, if you
Than
must
his,
know.
I would
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. How about that? That I thought that would be harder.
No, that's great. That's
No, but
great.
I think you for playing along with that question though.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You-
That was fun.
Yes, yes.
Well, thank you very much, Roni, for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here.
And of course, again, thank you all for listening to the No Fruit Podcast, and we will talk to you later.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the No Fruit Podcast, where we bring you fruitful conversations, ripened wisdom, and love that's deeply rooted. We hope today's discussion left you feeling uplifted, encouraged, and ready to take on life's journey with purpose. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who could use a little inspiration in their day. You can catch up on past episodes, send us your thoughts, or learn more about us on social media. Until next time, stay rooted in love, and remember, every seed you plant today shapes the fruit of tomorrow. Take care, and we'll see you next time.